Hello and welcome to an episode of the Football History Boys React. Now today we are looking closer at one of our favourite YouTube channels, Tifo Football. We've been watching them for a number of years now. They are fantastic, so please subscribe to them in the link below. But we want to find out some of the history of football tactics that they have created. Now this video is about 4 tactics that nobody uses anymore. I've got a good idea what they might be. You got any ideas?
I'm quite interested here because they are brilliant. As we said, Tifo are excellent and their videos are always really good and well illustrated. So I'm quite interested to learn some stuff that perhaps we didn't even know.
Alright, let's get it going.
Football loves new ideas, novel tactical trends, unusual players and changes in coaching approach.
So good.
But what are the ideas going out of fashion? Which tactics are heading for extinction?
What I would say straight away is he's right there. Football does love to change things around sometimes, like introduce new tactics. That's what sets it apart from so many other sports. Like, you know, for example, rugby. I know rugby fans will tell us there's loads of tactics involved, but I don't think there is really. I think it is generally you have the same positions. You know, your number 8 is gonna be there. Your fullback is always going to be there. You know, your scrum half's always going to be the one getting involved in the scrum. You know, you have your set position. You haven't got, like, you know, a floating role who kind of does all sorts of things, really.
Well, even in our period of watching football, isn't it, from, you know, early 2000s to today, we've seen football shift from your Mourinho part of the bus style to the early tiki-taka stuff to gegenpressing to all these different styles of football that have influenced the game. Some people love it, some people hate it, but that's what's great about football as well.
Just look how many editions of Inverting the Pyramid there is now. There's probably about 8 to 9 editions of it, so always been updated. Right, here we go.
For a long time, the 4-4-2 formation was the default way of setting a team up, in English football at least. 2 fullbacks, 2 centre-backs, 2 wingers, 2 central midfielders and 2 strikers. Football made simple. In 2009-10, it was still in use by nearly half of the teams in the league. According to Opta, 43.9% of the starting lineups named that year set up in a 4-4-2. That gradually decreased until a sudden drop in 2012-13, going down from 33% the season before to just 12%. In 2023-24, just 6.5% of the starting 11s in the Premier League have been arranged in a 4-4-2.
Wow.
Burnley, Luton Town,
to me, I think it's quite high.
Yeah, it's higher than well, they've told us there. Burnley, Luton, and Crystal Palace. I would say it would be those sort of sides, wouldn't it? Who did it? And you know, there is nothing wrong with it as a tactic, but it is so old school now compared to what we see regularly.
Well, we saw it now. It's 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. 17s play 3 at the back. It's very mixed, isn't it?
The lineups actually don't mean a huge amount for some sides. People like Man City and the way Pep lines up. You know, Stones or Lewis or whoever stepping into midfield.
Inverted. So in attack, you're a different formation to in defence. There we go.
Crystal Palace have been responsible for the majority of those, with most other teams opting for a variation on a 4-2-3-1 setup. 76 of the 200 starting lineups named this season, in fact. But of course, the evolution of football tactics is cyclical. Someone comes up with an idea, it gets widely adopted, then others figure out that idea's flaws. And so new ideas are established and old ones are revived. 4-4-2 might not be dead just yet. And of course, it remains an often used shape out of possession for many teams. So it certainly can't be described as obsolete. Over the past 10 seasons...
So, first one then, 4-4-2, being barely used, and that, you know, he's right there, has declined. But like he says, football is cyclical, and it probably will come back at some point. You've got, like, you know, the 4-2-4 formation, you know, the magical Magyars, like that one, you know, that went away, and it's sort of come back in a way as well. Liverpool kind of like to do that these days, but in attack, they go 4-2-4. So yeah, it's interesting how that works. And I mean, you look at tiki-taka. You mentioned it earlier, Pep Guardiola's sides. When that first came round, no one could live with it. It was impossible. Then all of a sudden, I know, you know, Di Matteo's Chelsea, for example, sussed it out. Mourinho's Inter sussed it out, and they found ways around it, and it had to be adapted and changed. And unfortunately, it kind of came a bit more boring
Yeah.
As a result,
yeah,
they lost a bit of that.
Because that was the way to stop it. Well, it wasn't almost to take it on. It was to soak it up, to stick people behind the ball.
Part of the airplane.
Yeah.
Seasons, there have been 40,715 corners awarded in the Premier League, from which 1,409 goals have been scored. It means that only 3.5% of corners actually result in goals, about 1 in 29. Therefore, managers inevitably look for more effective ways of using corners rather than just crossing into the box. Many top-flight clubs have either a full or part-time set-piece coach, but on a more basic level, this search for efficiency has contributed to the rise of short corners. Over the last decade, the low point of short corners taken in the Premier League was in 2012-13, when just 11.7% of the corners were short. The upward curve hasn't been smooth, but over subsequent seasons it has been rising, to the point where in 23-24, so far, 20.6% of corners have been taken short, up from 17.7% in the previous year. And since the vast majority of corners are still of the tradition...
You probably link that to possession kind of football these days as well. Like football's all about the statistics and the analytics that come out of it, isn't it now? And he says there about clubs having set piece coaches. They have like throwing coaches. I don't know. They have massive amounts of data analysts as well.
Well, and a short corner moves the players around in the box as well, isn't it? So you pull someone out to take that short corner on. The ball often goes back to the corner take it. Yeah, it's interesting. I used to get really frustrated by short corners, and there's part of me that still does. I think you still want to see the ball in the box and get someone under their head on it. But
at certain times of the game, if it's the 90th minute and you see a short corner, you're not happy.
Yeah.
Variety, we can't really claim that they're dying out.
Classic.
But the numbers are heading towards them being put on the endangered list. So, is the trend resulting in more goals? Well, sort of. In 2013-14, there were 123 goals from 4,094 corners, or 3%. And last season, there were 151 from 3,830, or 3.9%. Which means there has been an increase in goals from corners that roughly tracks with the increase in short corners. But there are a couple of things to take from this.
No.
First, 3% to 3.9% is an increase of 30%, which is significant but not momentous. And just because there's been a rise in short corners and a rise in the number of goals from corners doesn't necessarily mean that one has caused the other. It is possible, but equally it could just be that teams are thinking more carefully and working more specifically on what they do with long corners. For what it's worth, 24 of the 151 goals scored after corners last season were from short corners, while this season it's 3 from 29. There is no real correlation between short corners taken and goals scored from them either. Last season, Manchester United took the most with 67, but only scored once, which is exactly the same number of goals as Everton, who took just 9.
Ah, there you go.
Teams are shooting from outside the box much less frequently.
Long shots,
in 2009-10, 45% of shots in the Premier League were taken from outside the penalty area. That figure has, with the odd minor fluctuation, essentially gone down each year, to the point where last season 33.2% of shots were taken from long range. This season we're at 32.6%. Now the reason is obvious. A shot from outside the box is much less likely to result in a goal. Though 45% of total shots in 2009-10 were taken from at least 18 yards out, only 13% of the total goals scored were. Long-range shooting may be spectacular, but it's a pretty inefficient way of trying to score. However, just because teams are taking fewer long shots doesn't necessarily mean fewer...
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think Klopp was someone who instructed his players to not try and block long shots, wasn't it? He wanted players to get out of the way of long shots. Defenders, you'd see Van Dijk or whoever turning away from it and trying to get themselves out of the way of it, because it gives the keeper a better chance, because so many long shots are inefficient and they don't actually lead to anything. There's been a couple of articles lately about the death of the screamer and things like that, and you still see it.
Yeah. But John Duran scored one, didn't he, this season? Yeah. But I thought what was interesting about that is he scored it. It's a great goal from 30 yards, top corner, and they're all doing this to players. Oh my gosh, what an amazing goal! That was pretty standard about 10-15 years ago.
Yeah, and granted, sometimes those long shots that you see, the ones that you don't remember, but if you're at a stadium or your side's behind, that balloon over the bar and you think, what a waste. So I suppose that the reason why they do it is because possession is so important nowadays.
Yeah.
To create a chance that maybe you still don't score, but is within the box.
It's higher XG.
Yeah, higher XG, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Goals are being scored from a long way out. In 2009-10, 137 goals were scored from outside the box, a number that's gone up and down over the years, from a high of 186 in 2013-14 to a low of 120 in 2020-21. 17.7% and 11.7% of the total goals scored in those seasons.
There's no fans. 2020-21, there was no fans in the stadiums. No one going shoot they all do these days. So that's probably why there was no goals that season.
You could hear managers saying, "Don't shoot." Yeah.
Don't you shoot.
Yeah.
And now it's going back up. The last two full seasons saw 143 and 145 scored from outside the box.
So there you go.
13.6% and 13.3% for the total. While this season's ratios stand at 13.2%.
So
teams are taking far fewer long shots than 14 years ago, but are scoring more goals from them, which suggests that those long shots are being more carefully chosen.
Makes sense.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, good, and that's a good idea.
There was a time when a goalkeeper's primary option.
Wow, this has been gone, I think, for a while, really.
I'd be very surprised if they bust this myth. I think it's got to be gone. Surely.
Goalkeepers passing. I mean, Victor Valdez was playing short passes all the time. 15 years ago,
and it was mind blowing. It was
mind-blowing.
What are you doing?
As sweeper keeper, everyone was like, if the ball came to the goalkeeper 20 years ago, it was get that ball out, get it gone. Don't. Your keepers were famously rubbish with their feet.
They've lost jobs over it now. They keepers have lost jobs. You've seen plenty.
Ramsdale.
Yeah, Joe Hart. When Guardiola came in. And
Simon Mignolet.
Yeah, and even in the Championship again, and lower down too. But
it was the Spanish keeper. It was the Victor Valdez, the Pepe Reina, wasn't it? Who all of a sudden
they were noted for it. And Neuer as well, wasn't it? Who was
Neuer used to run out to the halfway line, didn't he? Yeah. I think it has just been the standard process now. Edison
was to smash the ball upfield. Now, teams are encouraging their keepers to be a bit more precise. There are a few ways of measuring this, but the one that we're going with is pass completion. Going back 20 years, the average pass completion rate for a goalkeeper in 2003-04 was 42.5%, but that has gradually risen to the point that this season has seen 71.8% of passes find their mark. Last season it was 67.1%. The season before, 65.8%. Before that, 64.9%, and before that, 60.9%.
The Pep effect.
So on. Yeah. Imagine that you could learn everything that you need to know about football news in 10 minutes without having to read anything. Well,
fab, right, amazing. I really enjoyed that video.
Yeah.
Very informative, excellent animation, and as we said before, a wonderful narration as well. So thanks so much to Tifo Football for letting us look at that video. We hope we can watch a few more of them as well. We've learned a little bit there as well. What tactics do you think then do you not see anymore that you think may come back?
Yeah.
What tactics are better off without?
I don't miss the part of the bus.
I don't know.
I don't miss that.
Can't stand that.
Yeah, Mourinho was at a time brilliant as a character to watch, but the football wasn't great, was it?
The death of the classic winger as well, I find.
Yeah.
A winger now is
a left midfielder or a right midfielder isn't a thing.
That's a death, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, Mo Salah's a right wing and he scores 30 goals a season. That shouldn't happen.
Shouldn't happen. Yeah.
There you go. The death of the winger. That's my one. Right, there we are. Hope you enjoyed that one. We'll see you again for the next one very soon.